I will try and convince you that large things matter as well, because I will talk about large animals, and I mean really large animals, and they are important to ecosystems. Because if they go extinct, all of the dynamics they created go extinct as well, and the ecosystems becomes more homogeneous, and there are fewer species. So I'll take you to 3 places to look at large animals and their ecosystems. The first place is Rodrigues, the island of Rodrigues in the Indian Ocean. It wasn't discovered until 1691 when a French Huguenot was marooned there for 2 years, François Leguat, and he wrote a book about his experiences. In this book, he wrote about especially the one large animal that he found more fascinating than any other large animal, and I can obviously only agree, the giant tortoise, this one. And he wrote about them, that there are so many of them that they form large herds, and you can walk 100 meters across tortoises without setting foot to the ground even once. But then more colonists arrived and they started eating the tortoises, and then when they went extinct within 100 years. So this is what a lot of Rodrigues looks like today. Barren, very few trees. The few trees that are there, though, inspired some biologists to say, okay, let's go out and pick as many seeds as we can and start germinate them and recreate the forests, which is what is being done in several places, including this reserve that's named after our Huguenot hero, François Leguat Reserve. So they put it out about 200,000 seedlings of native trees, 30 species in total or so, and the forest is growing nicely. It's about 2 meters tall now in only 10 years. But until recently it was an empty forest. There were no large animals in it. All of the ecology that's driven by large animals, all of the dynamics were extinct, and there was basically only ghosts left. So the same biologists started wondering, we have the Rodrigues tortoise, the giant one, which has gone extinct. So why can't we just take something to replace its function? And the best candidate is this beautiful lady here, the giant Aldabra tortoise. And so the equation is a little bit more simple than some of the other equations we've seen today already. It's simply, is this tortoise as good as the other one? And that is a question. And this question is part of a conservation revolution that's happening around us right now in the world that's called rewilding. The idea that by replacing missing key elements in ecosystems, you can resurrect extinct ecologies, even while all of the DNA people are having fun trying to make mammoths, we can just take a replacement instead. And this is actually what's happening in Rodrigues since a few years now. About 300 Aldabra tortoises are released into the forest, and they seem to be doing quite well. But it's still early days, and we're really interested in the obvious question, exactly how much of the ecology will be resurrected, and what are we aiming towards? Because there are no islands like this anymore, or are there? We move on to the next station in our tour, the Aldabra Atoll north of Madagascar, which is fantastic. And getting there is incredibly difficult, and it can be summarized by this slide. When you approach the island and you have to wade through these lovely little creatures before you get onto the island. So you have to be determined if you want to go there. But when you get there, you understand right away it is a special place you arrived at. And it's not only the view, it is this magic number. And thank you to the mathematician that arrived at this estimate, 100,000 giant tortoises still make this their home. This is the largest group of reptiles this size anywhere on the planet. It is, as Rolf said, the last reptile-dominated ecosystem on the planet. So this is the last place we can study what's actually going on the way islands used to be before humans got there. And they are really a dominant force. You see them wallowing as in a bygone age, reptiles, the way we used to look at dinosaurs. They walk across like the kings of the ecosystem that they are, obviously rather royal looking to my unbiased eyes. And if you go to the beach, you don't have to fight your way through Spanish or English tourists. You simply have to push away 150 kilo tortoise and you can lie down. We don't have much time for that though. But tortoises are everywhere. That's the main first take-home message about Aldabra Atoll. And we're a group of Zurich scientists that started studying a lot of different aspects of their life and their ecosystem and the interactions that they create, specifically going all the way from genetics to behavior to remote sensing with satellites and drones. But I'll just share 3 of the aspects of their lives with you here today. Movement, food, and rest. And first of all, movement. Yes, tortoises, they do move. I'll actually prove that to you rather soon. Because we have 31 tortoises that carry these high-tech GPS units on their back, this is the lovely thing about tortoises. You could probably mount a small factory in a satellite dish and they would still keep on walking. They're really easy to work with, except for when they walk under the plants and destroy everything. But every few months, we have to go and collect the data, which is much easier than telemetry used to be. We simply go out onto the highest point on Aldabra, which is this 20-meter tall sand dune. It is goodbye Aldabra with climate change. But anyway, And you just have to find the tortoises, you track them, and once you're within range, the data will be automatically downloaded onto your base station. And that generates a whole lot of data. And what does tortoise movement look like? Well, here's a video that will summarize the first 1.5 years of tortoises moving on the eastern part of the atoll. And you can see the little yellow one that's on the coast right now. Actually, oh, there she goes again. She goes all the way in, and meanwhile the purple one is going in and out of the mangroves, and it's sort of like a horse race. This was 1.5 years of movement data. And the take-home message is really that you can see the scale up there, that they move large distances. And you can also see that they spend time in several places. And above all, you can see they move in non-random ways. They have navigation, they have spatial memory. And this is after the first few years, we're basically only scratching the very surface of tortoise movement biology. But already we know much more about that than we knew before. So the next aspect of tortoise life is food. What do tortoises feed on? Well, they're like us. They like snacks. And first and foremost, they like to snack on fruits. If they find a fruit, they will eat a fruit right away. Then the seed passes through the gut. That takes about 1 to 3 weeks. They are slow in some aspects. And then it comes out on the other end and can germinate into a new plant that then creates a new forest, maybe. This is called seed dispersal. It is an incredibly important dynamic in ecosystems. In general, the larger the animal is, the larger the fruit it can swallow, and the more important it is as a seed disperser. So let's ask the question, how large a fruit can a tortoise swallow? And this is the next video. So I was feeding this 200-kilo male around lemon just to see what was happening, and I hoped to get image of juice squirting out everywhere, but he just basically proceeded to spend a long time swallowing it entirely whole. And notice how much slower he got now. He's like, I am going to get this thing down. And this is really incredible and tells you everything you need to know. That's the face of a very happy, accomplished frugivore right then and there. So they can swallow really large things. They do not destroy them with teeth like other animals. So they are quite efficient seed dispersers. But the main dish is vegetables. They try to eat leaves from shrubs and trees as high as they can reach. And they also graze as low as they can get. This is as fine as any golf course you will find. It's called the so-called tortoise turf because it is a turf that is really driven by the activity of the tortoises. And this is one of the key habitats on the atoll that we're studying, and we have to leave the comparable comfort of the main research station, sail across the lagoon, then we arrive in the mangroves and hike across the mangroves before finally carrying all of our equipment. We arrive at the most luxurious field camp of all of them on Aldabra at St. Cars, which is really at the end of the world. Here we spent 1 month setting up a long-term experiment, and the recipe for doing that was really, really simple. You need a lot of wood and material, and you need some strong students and helpers from the rangers that live on the island to help you. And then you just go inland and build the plots. That's very simple. And the plots are exclusion plots. They keep the tortoises out, away from part of the turf, and by following the dynamics in the next 5 to 10 years, we can compare what happens inside to what happens outside and get a really detailed understanding of exactly how the tortoises structure this grassland that is so important for them as well. So that was the simple version. The real story actually includes a little bit more pain, and this next video is going to show just exactly a little bit of the pain that was involved in a very quick time lapse of us moving across, carrying the wood up to 3 kilometers inland, and I lost 12 kilos in a month, that kind of field work. I'm going back in December again. I need that. So now the eagle-eyed among you would probably say, Dennis, you just told us there's 100,000 tortoises on this island and I didn't see a single one. Well, this was at 2 p.m. It's still very warm. Only biologists are stupid enough to carry heavy shit around in the noon heat. Tortoises are much more clever. They spend the siesta in the shade. Which brings us to the last part of their life on Aldabra, rest. They like to rest in the shade. In fact, it is necessary for them to rest in the shade, otherwise they die when they're out in the noon sun. Like this one, who maybe got a little bit too late last time, and all of the spaces were taken, and that's what she ended up looking like. So we were hiking along the coast one day, and the coast looked like this where we were going. There was not a single shrub, not a single tree. It was at the same time around 2 in the afternoon, and we weren't expecting to see any tortoises. And then all of a sudden we come across this bunch huddling behind a rock. There's a little bit of shade there, yes, sure, but there are absolutely no trees around. So where were they hiding in the noon sun? We looked around a little bit, and we found a crack in the ground, and this crack leads down into a cave, and you climb down and look into the cave. And there was just this amazing sight for biologists and pretty much everyone else, I hope. Tortoises, and a lot of them crammed into a cave, waiting for the sun to go away so they could go up again. And the really incredible thing is just how long they probably did this. Now the grey rock up there, if I put my hand on it and do like this, it comes away bleeding. If I do it down where the tortoises are moving, it's like touching a very, very soft marble sculpture. So how long has this been going on? Maybe hundreds of years. We obviously don't have this long today, so instead I'll show you another video that summarizes what it could have looked like over the last few eons in Aldabra, where first they're all cramming to get in, just like rush hour in Zurich, and it's getting warmer and warmer. You can see the shadows moving from the camera, and they're just going, I need to get in there, and I need to get in there now before I boil to death. The next few hours it looks like this. Tortoises just disappearing into the depth of the cave, layered on top of each other and more or less comfortable. Before a few hours later, it goes the other way. And they get back up to go to that piece of grassland you see along the coast on the edge. Now they really need to get up there as fast as possible because they all want to eat as much grass as possible before it gets dark. And when it gets dark, tortoises need to sleep again. What do they do at night? Well, there's no sun. So this is one of the most endearing things about tortoises to me on Aldabra. As soon as it gets dark, they just fall asleep right then and there, legs out, neck out, happy smile on their face. This to me is the cutest animal on the world when they do like that, and it summarizes everything why I love tortoises. And don't tell my wife, well, she knows already anyway. So, those of you who know me, I could go on talking about Aldabra for a long time, but I won't do it here because there's simply no time. I will say that there's everything we are learning on Aldabra, we can now take back to Rodrigues and use it directly there to maximize the efficiency of the tortoises there, how much shade they need, for example. So now I hope I convinced all of you, tortoises are awesome, they're fantastic. But there might still be some of you that are feeling a little bit like, meh, okay, it's an island, it's far away, they're tortoises, it's cool. But why should I care? Why is it relevant to me, all of these stories about ghosts and resurrection? Well, I promised you 3 stations. We visited 2. Let's go to the last one, which we know quite well. Zurich. In Zurich, we have large ghosts too. We may be not aware of it most of the time, but 30,000 years ago, we had enormous forest elephants weighing 7 tons moving around, creating lots of dynamic in the ecosystem. 10,000 years ago, we had a lot of mammoths in the ecosystem. Right now, our forests are as empty as the Rodriguan forest was before we put tortoises back into them. So why not take some of the rapidly depopulating valleys in Switzerland, put a fence down at the end, and chuck some elephants in and go study them and see what happens. Let's see if we can bring back some true megafauna to Switzerland instead of just having deer and pigs as the largest things. This may sound crazy, but this is not a Photoshop. This is from my native Denmark, where they're running some preliminary tests on Indian elephants in forest reserves to see what happens. And if they can do it in Denmark, we could do it in Switzerland. And in fact, I would argue with the usual Swiss precision, we could probably do it and become world leaders in resurrection ecology and have fun and have a little bit of a more exciting life in the meantime. So big things matter. Thank you.